We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. Please make sure you join the Ram TV Live family. It is growing bigger and bigger and bigger every single day as we have on great guests. We have great information. We dive deep into the topics to give you the information that you need to know, and we ask the questions that most people don't ask. I'm Julian Aciard. I'm the Blue Collar Intellectual, and I am here repeatedly to challenge your preconceived notions and shatter your misconceptions peddled by grifters and influencers on both sides of the aisle who happen to be largely full of shit. You know, there's been a lot happening this week, right? I was going to have a guest on. We're going to have him on next week instead. My buddy Torain Walker. He's from the other side of the aisle. We're going to show you how to have a proper civil discourse, okay? We had multiple civil discussions. We've known about each other. We've interacted with each other for a couple years now. During the election cycle, as Kamala Harris was losing, he had me repeatedly in spaces to explain why she was losing, why Trump is connecting with the vast majority of people in the country, and why Kamala Harris's campaign was basically doubling and tripling down on the methodology that typically I lambast Republicans for doing. You know, telling people that what they're seeing, don't believe their lying eyes, that their problems aren't really problems, dismissing their problems, blaming everything on the other person, but not proposing a solution, and then focusing on identity politics and things that don't actually equate to winning or losing the next election cycle. That's what I'm talking about. All right. So we have...
We're good until... Keep going.
All right. So we have... These last couple weeks, I've been getting into how society has delved into this matriarchal culture of how we're prioritizing unfettered validation and affirmation. And because we have infrastructurally instituted this and enforced this unfettered validation affirmation in society, we have gotten to the point where we have completely devolved as a society and gotten rid of any semblance of duty and responsibility, a duty to yourself, a duty to your family, a duty to your community, and to the country, your state and the country at large. We've gotten rid of all of that, right? And an absolute perfect example of this is we actually have a legitimate Marxist, a socialist, outright being elected as mayor of New York City. The biggest, most populous city in the United States is about to have an outright socialist as a mayor. And what does he have to say about crime in New York City? Well, it's not going to be what you'd expect. Or maybe, if you've been paying attention over the last decade or so, it is going to be exactly what you would expect to come from the left, right? Instead of acknowledging the problems that exist, or you know what, I'll give the left this. I will give you cover for this one simple thing. You are honest about the predicators of violence, and of crime being poverty and lack of education and lack of opportunity. You're right about that. The problem is your solutions don't actually increase opportunity, don't actually increase education. I mean real education, not indoctrination, not making cogs in a machine, but making critical thinking, independent adults who can go about their daily lives and can wrest their dreams from the stars by the sweat of their own brow and strength of their own back. You understand? You're not doing that, which is why everything you say rings hollow. Now, on the Republican side, Sonny Johnson had a Thunderdome space, as usual, on yesterday, where she had discussed that every time a grievance is brought up, Sonny Johnson brought it up. She's the host of SiriusXM Patriot Sonny's Corner on Saturdays from 1 to 3. She brought up that every time a grievance is brought up by the left, we do them a favor and we discount the grievance. Hello? In what world does a businessman tell a client, I not only refuse to acknowledge your problem, I refuse to solve your problem? Businessmen don't do that. They say, whatever your problem is, I have a product here. Let me explain how it is going to solve your problem. Ford does not spend all their marketing dollars against Chevy and Dodge. They spend all of their marketing dollars explaining how no matter what problem you got going on in your life, no matter what lifestyle you live, they got a Ford to sell you that is going to make your situation better. Republicans, conservatives, Christians, get up off your ass and sell the alternative. Here's Mamdani. Here's this asshole in New York. Go ahead and play that clip.
I know that Jewish New Yorkers, like Jewish Americans, are fearful in this moment of anti-Semitism. They're fearful, especially after the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado. And they're fearful also in conversations that I have heard myself about life in this city. I spoke to a Jewish man in Williamsburg not too many weeks ago who told me about the fact that he now locks the door that he used to close, that he used to keep open for years because of a fear of who may come in. I spoke to a friend of mine after October 7th who told me about going to his synagogue for Shabbat services and hearing the door open behind him and turning around with a tremor going up his back, not knowing who was walking in and what they wished for them. And ultimately, it's through the conversations I've had with Jewish New Yorkers that I have developed a proposal for the Department of Community Safety that would include an 800% increase in funding for hate crime prevention programs. Because ultimately, we cannot simply say that anti-Semitism has no home in this city or no place in this country. We have to do more than talk about it. We have to tackle it. And that's what we will do through this funding and through this commitment. We will root out bigotry across the 5 boroughs.
We're going to focus on rooting out bigotry across the 5 boroughs, right? So hate crime is real, right? Hate crime is real. I'm not saying hate crime isn't real. Hate crime is real. There's a rise of anti-Semitism within the United States on both the right and the left. Yes, there is a whole group of people out there going, it's the Jews. It's the Jews. Candace Owens is one of them. You know, many of us tried to tell you for the last 10 years or so that she was going to be a problem. And every time we told you she was going to be a problem, you said, no, she's just a truth teller. She's just a truth teller. You know, it was all fun and games when she was saying shit about black people. And then all of a sudden she went into it's the Jew-spiracy theories. And now everyone's got a freaking problem with her. But you know what? I have a problem with Mamdani. And my problem with Mamdani is he recognizes hate crime, right? Recognize hate crime. Hate crime is real. Hate crime is real. Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast endorses the idea that hate crime is real. Now, let's go to that second clip, the other one of how he's going to deal with violence, which he says is an artificial construct. He's going to empty out the prisons in New York. Let's go to that one.
Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have that one down.
That's the Proud Elephants one.
Stand by.
Yeah. Mamdani, serious friggin' problem. Hate crime is real. But apparently violence is an artificial construct.
Stand by. So we're not going to get that one time.
It's okay. It's all right. Can you just play that audio?
Trying to right now.
Oftentimes, we've even found as legislators, when we go into these courts, the term violent crime is even used when people are stealing packages. Violent crime is even used when people are accused of burglary and there happens to be a housing unit in that same dwelling. So violence is an artificial construction. And we have to be very clear that what is happening here with these district attorneys, that is violence. That is violence of the highest degree.
Oh, Lord. All right. Look, so I'm going to try and be nuanced about this, right? Because I don't run cover for people who I believe are abusing the justice system. And I have long been a critic of DAs and prosecutors who rack up charges and levy the threat of higher charges that don't apply to the situation or to the suspect to get them to agree to a plea deal. However, what we're dealing with in blue cities across, and I'm saying blue cities, yes, I'm making this political because this is very political. In blue cities, ideologically, there is a refusal to admit that violent crime exists and that you need to be hard against that violent crime in order to stop it from propagating further. So what are they doing? They're letting people in and out, revolving door, cashless bail, right back on the streets within 24 hours, committing the same crime over and over again. It just repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. And then when you do get somebody locked up in prison, you don't sit them down and have them locked up in perpetuity. You have them locked up with bigger, badder guys that teach them how to be bigger, badder criminals. And then you let them out during an economic depression or recession like what happened during the pandemic. And what do you get? Increased recidivism. Why do you get increased recidivism? Because when there is less job opportunities and education for these people who are entering back into the marketplace, they recidivize. They go back to the life of crime that they already had because quick money is easy money. Easy money comes with bad consequences. Bad consequences lands these stupid asses right back in prison. But here's the issue. Are there DAs across the country who are willing to levy smaller crimes into bigger crimes? Yes. Who are they willing to do it against? Typically people who have public defenders who don't have the money to fight back because they can rack up their numbers a little bit, right? Yes, that does happen. But the violence is an artificial construct. No, violence is not an artificial construct. It's a very real construct. And if you ever had a gun pointed in your face, or ever been mugged on the way home from work, or ever had your shop robbed, or your bodega robbed, or your store broken into, which a lot of people in New York City happen to live above, they happen to live in or above their shops. Why? Because that's how businesses were built back in the day when families owned and opened businesses. And he's trying to make it seem like, oh, these buildings aren't necessarily the same. The burglary is a little bit, it's not as serious because they're only robbing a business and the business can afford it. If you're a small business owner, which the vast majority of business owners in the United States are small business owners, you can't afford continuous burglaries, robberies, breaking and enterings, destruction of your private property because it wrecks your lifestyle. It wrecks everything that you built. I'm a small business owner. If you came and destroyed my shit, one, I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to shoot you because I'm not a nice Republican. I'm not a Mitt Romney, oh shucks guys Republican. I'm a fuck around and find out Republican. I'll lay your ass 6 feet deep. However, this guy is a problem. And we're allowing him to be elected. Why? Because we refuse to go and fight in deep blue cities. We refuse to fight in deep blue cities in the middle of red states. You can't tell me you're serious about saving America if you won't get off your ass and solidify and protect your own backyard. Get off your goddamn Twitter machines and go make some shit happen. We are a federalist system, local government, state government, federal government, in that order. Most of you are not Ricky Recon. You're not going to be effective at the federal level. You're the equivalent of the National Guard. You should be fortifying your communities against the next storm or the next socialist asshole who happens to come down the pipeline to destroy your lives. Get up off your ass, fortify your communities, put down your Twitter machines, touch some grass. He would live a lot healthier life if he stayed offline and dealt with real people who aren't bigoted. All right. I didn't get to some of the clips we were going to get into, but, it's the typical stuff. The View says that Pete Hegseth is being mean because he wants to kick fat people who are incapable of doing their jobs out of the military. And, of course, YouTube wants to help, Google wants to help censor the 2026 election to get rid of Trump because how dare those pesky Hispanic voters decide to vote for whoever the hell they want. But, the next segment, we're going to have a fantastic guest for you. Stick around after the break. I'm not going to tease it. You're going to have to come back. We'll see you in a moment.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Look at that, it's so sad.
All right. Welcome back to the Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. I'm glad you guys had fun. I hope you had fun during the first segment. I got a little fiery because having socialists get elected in the United States kind of pisses me off because it makes me feel like everything that we fought for kind of means jack shit. So my next guest is here to talk about the U.S. economy because guess what? It's turning around. We're looking a lot better, people. We got Bruce DeTore. He is the director of communications for the American Small Business League, the strongest voice in America for the country's small businesses. And that feeds right into the previous segment. I was just talking about small businesses getting violently robbed by morons in New York City. And hey, Mamdani wants to allow it to happen because, he's a socialist, so he doesn't actually like capitalism at all. Any way, shape, or form. So I want to thank our guest for coming on. How's it going today, sir?
Going well, Julia. Nice to be here. How are you?
I was doing pretty good. Well, if we didn't have socialists getting elected in the United States, I'd be doing a lot better. But what's a better way to prove how capitalism works than sticking it up against a bunch of intellectual neophytes?
Exactly. Yeah, I grew up in and around New York City, and that's a That's a whole huge situation there, and I don't know. I'm still rooting for Curtis Swilla, if that's how you pronounce his name. Anyway, um, you know, we can talk about big business. I mean, small businesses and how big businesses are getting small business contracts. Or I'll follow your lead, Julian.
Well, actually, that actually sounds really good. What big businesses are managing to get a hold of small business contracts, forcing small business owners out of being of great economic opportunities? How is this happening?
It's happening because of decades of momentum of it happening. And to set the scene so it all makes sense, the United States government is supposed to steer 23% of its procurement or contracting budget to America's small businesses. And that's great because 99.9% of all businesses are small businesses. 98% have less than 100 employees. We truly are a small business nation. Small businesses create almost half the GDP. They employ about half the workforce, and it's everything that could help small businesses helps instantly the middle class economy, local economies. But we have found for decades that through bad policies, loopholes, and flat out fraud, Julian, the vast majority of the federal contract dollars goes to the 0.1% of businesses that are big businesses. And that deprives America of the millions of new jobs that small businesses would create if they got those contracts. The big businesses that get those contracts, they don't create one net new job because they're already big.
Mm-hmm.
And we have sued many agencies of the federal government, the Pentagon a lot, SBA, Department of Energy, NASA, and have found this to be so. So at our site, asbl.com, people can see our history there, and kind of the call to arms to get convinced about this and to contact your senators and your Congress people and the president and say, is this true? And if so, and you see that it is on our website, this has to be exposed, because Republican and Democrat presidents, Julian, roll right along with this. They don't question this. They don't reveal this reality. It's a measure. It might be the greatest measure of how the federal government is captured by giant corporate interests, which history says that's the definition of fascism. Corporate and government blending.
This is why I'm always skeptical of public-private partnerships. It never ends up turning. It always sounds really good on paper. It sounds great in a speech, but in most people who don't do research, we go with our feelings and what feels good in the moment, and we don't really care about the minutiae as long as we think our problems are getting solved. But or as long as you powder our butts a little bit. But the reality is these public-private partnerships manage to work exactly like fascism. And the corporate interests, who are large money donors into all these presidential campaigns, Senate campaigns, congressional campaigns, big party donors and stuff, they manage to run the gambit on small businesses. So my question to you is, do small businesses have a window, have a nice open window when it comes to the economy right now? Is it looking up, or are we stagnating along?
My impression is we're stagnating along, and it's not as optimistic as a lot of reports are out there. And discerning truth, Julian, as you well know, is almost impossible these days without some real work, because there's a lot of sides out there that say different things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's tough for an American to know. Are we doing well because this party and these officials say we are, or are we going down the tubes the way the opposition or the other party is saying it? From our examination of it, small businesses are on the ropes, and even though the GDP was revised upward, or the last quarter reported a rise in GDP. A day or two or a few days or a week before that, there was another revision to lower job creation.
Mm-hmm.
And almost hourly, if you search different AI platforms for, small business sentiment or how has the new administration affected small businesses, one answer is kind of optimistic. An hour later, on the same platform, same question. No, not so much,
Mm-hmm.
But at the street level, among people I know and maybe we're, it's tough to make ends meet. The average American is one paycheck away from, a real catastrophe, if not homelessness. And the prices of just everyday life are abysmal. So we hope for the best, but we're raising the alarm about this contracting thing. And, I can go into some more details and some calls to action and suggestions along those lines. But I saw, from our people, a couple of different things you might want to talk about. So I don't want to just keep rambling.
Well, I'm looking at the projections, right? One of the things that I did want to distill for people was, the economic projections, because it says the GDP, the government's broad measure of economic output, grew at 3.8% annual rate from April to June, in Commerce's third estimate. That compares with the prior reading of 3.3%. All right, that seems like a significant increase. And then I'm looking down here, the consumer spending rose at 2.5%, up from the previously reported 1.6%. That seems pretty optimistic. The key gauge for underlying demand advanced around 2.9%, sharply higher than the earlier 1.9%. That seems significant. Prices rose 2.1% annual rate in the second quarter. Excluding food and energy prices increased 2.6%. Now, that's the catch-all. So that's that little, like, buy this Tylenol, it'll get rid of your headache, but your balls are going to fall off. That's what that feels like, because for the vast majority of middle-class Americans, energy prices and food and gas are your significant expenditures. So it's like, oh, great. You can buy an iPhone a little bit cheaper. There's a sale on a new TV at Walmart. But you're not buying a new TV every week. But you are buying groceries every week. You're not buying a new TV or PlayStation or going to the movies every month. You're not eating out every month. But you're sure as hell paying your energy bill every month.
Yeah, and even the nice numbers that are, every official pronouncement anymore for years, Julian, I attach a comma, maybe,
Yeah.
after anything I hear from the government, anything I hear from the media. I think there's a rule in court. Juries are instructed by the judge, I believe, if a witness is found to be lying, you are not only not obligated to believe anything else he said, you are instructed not to believe anything else that he said.
Mm-hmm.
And the federal government, for as well-intentioned any individual might be, or any head of any department, I'm sorry to say that history proves that the American government, under any administration, their numbers and their prognostications and their declarations of what is or isn't truth or false cannot be believed at face value. So, Julian, I'd like to think that those numbers are on the rise. That's how sincerely and deeply educated I am. I was just going to say skeptical or cynical. I'm sorry. I am proud to boast about the research that I've done to say nothing can be believed at face value, and we have to roll up our sleeves and find for ourselves and confirm such claims, or to get a picture of what reality is. And that might be just stating the obvious. I'd love to talk a little bit more about small businesses if you wanted to hear.
Definitely.
Some
now that we got
very,
now that we got the shattering the prognostications out of the way, because I got to be honest, I'm right there with you. I don't feel it. I don't feel it in my wallet. I don't feel it in my daily expenditures or my weekly expenditures. They say that we're on the rise, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it. When I see people when I see a drastic change in people's behavior, then maybe I'll start to see it. I'll start to believe it. But right now, I don't see it.
No, and there's one particular thing, I appreciate being invited on and getting known. So you deserve to, you heard what we do at the American Small Business League. I want to tell you about one particular project that we're very excited about. It's called Don't Cheat Women. And we created a website called don'tcheatwomen.com. No apostrophe in any of those words. And it's our effort to lobby Congress to raise from 5% to 15% the federal contracts that must go to women-owned small businesses. And that would push from 23 to 33% the federal contract dollars that would have to go to small businesses in general. And not only would that create millions of new jobs, which alone would cause a great economic prosperity, but what it does for women in a nutshell is really, really important. It's not charity. It's not a handout in any way, shape, or form, because women are half the population. They own 40% of all businesses in America, and they sell what the government buys. The United States government is the largest purchaser of goods and services on the planet, projected to spend $800 billion in 2025, and by many measures, it really spends $1 trillion, $1.3 trillion, $1.5 trillion. But just looking at the 800 billion, why are women only getting 5% when they own 40% of the businesses? They employ over 12 million workers. They own 14 million businesses. They sell what the government buys. They generate almost $3 trillion in revenue. And here's where the rubber hits the road. Because men earn and save more, they have more political clout and power, because they can donate to politicians more, they have more influence there, and they can run for office far more easily. Up to roughly 75% of all seats in the House, the Senate, state legislatures, and every president's cabinet are men. They hold almost that many governor seats, and they hold 90% of committee chair positions and party leadership positions, and they have different values and priorities than women in politics. Women are not only human beings, but they deserve to have not only economic parity and fairness, that will allow them to have political equality. It's 2025. By many measures, women are doing well financially. They are up on the rise, and men are either flat or sliding. But when it comes to this particular thing, why should companies owned by men get 95% of the federal budget, which is basically our tax dollars, okay? And people can read all about it, the compelling case we make along these lines at don'tcheatwomen.com. And then there's a what you can do page. And there's a letter along these lines that anyone can swipe and send, and it gives you the links how to send it to your senators, send it to your congressman, send it to the president, and understand that there are federal contracts out there that can be applied for. It's arduous to apply. That's another thing we would lobby for is, can we simplify that? Can we make it easier? Can the SBA do more than just talk about loans? Because it's really well branded in most people's heads. The SBA is where you get loans, or you get an SBA-backed loan, because the loan really comes from a local bank and the SBA just guarantees it. What's this stuff about contract? What do you mean government contracts? Yeah. $800 billion worth of government contracts, and 23% are supposed to go to small businesses. Why are women only getting 5%? Thank you for letting me climb on this soapbox.
No. While I always dig into the data, and what I see is largely one of the main reasons why women don't have more aren't running for office more, in office more, and have more political dollars to donate and clout is choices. Women spend more. Women are more impulsive with their money, spend more. Men typically save more. And women typically make the choice to child rear at some point in their life and to sacrifice a level of growth and a level of their career. However, everything that you said, I completely agree with. So I just adding that little bit of nuance. I'd like people to go to Don't Cheat Women and the American Small Business League and support that initiative. Bring some sort of economic parity, make sure, especially if it's going to not just help women, but by extension, help women and help all small businesses and help all small business owners. And that by extension helps all of us as Americans. creates more jobs.
Yep, that's exactly it. And we have searched and found 1,300 people running for the midterms next year, Julian, for the House and the Senate.
Nice.
And we're reaching out to them and we're teaching them this, and we're talking to a bunch of them. We're interviewing a bunch of them on our podcast, and we're blowing their minds about it because most people don't know this reality about the presence, the strength, the possibilities of women-owned small businesses. We're trying to create a movement. We want to create as many candidates, and we're also reaching out to all incumbents, all the sitting Congress, sitting Senate, and the members of the small business committees in the House and the Senate, and saying, listen, you need to do this. It would be great for the economy, all local economies, the middle class, women in particular, and we consider it completely bipartisan. It's not a left or right thing. It's just, can we fulfill the law, make sure these small business contracts stop going to big businesses, and it's right in the palm of our hands. This was created by the 1953 Small Business Act. That's the law that stipulated a percentage of contracts have to go. It said a fair portion, and over the decades it became 23%. Well, now think about this, Julian. As is, that's not being fulfilled. But even if it were, it means that 23% of federal contracts are going to the 99% of all businesses that are small businesses. And that 77% of the contracts are going to the 1/10 of 1% that are big businesses.
Yep.
That's an outrageous reality of collusion between the biggest corporations and its grip on the federal agencies who contract, goods and services to these giant corporations. And I also lay it at the feet of the military-industrial complex, the Pentagon being such a large player and factor in our federal government. I was listening to you in the prior segment, and you sound like you've got a really, really nice, thorough education and perspective on how the country is just not working along the lines that it's supposed to. And those are things I'd love to explore with you now or in the future.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing the music, but I'd like to have you back on. We can go really, really deep into everything, because how we got here is, I think, where most people get things wrong. And if you're getting it wrong at how we got here, you're going to get it wrong when it comes to how to fix it.
Yeah, and our history has a lot of examples of greatness that had been done and we can emulate.
100%. I want to thank you for coming on. Everybody, this is Bruce DeTore. Go ahead and look him up and support his work, the American Small Business League, and support Don't Cheat Women. It's an initiative that's going to help all Americans, going to help the economy, it's going to help create jobs. You can't want to make America great again if you don't mean all Americans. That's the whole part of it. I want to make America great again. All of us as a whole. We'll see you after the break.
Thank you all. Okay. Bye.
Wonders of the world I've seen.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
How do you know when you've made the right right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Blue Collar Intellectual. We are on our third segment for the day. I hope you're getting a lot of good information because we're trying to provide it to you. If you're not, drink some caffeine. I got some caffeine right here. You know, black coffee. We're not putting any extra shit. We're trying to stay healthy, right? I'm down 30 pounds. I'm not trying to gain it back. But speaking of health, you know, there's been a lot of stuff over the airwaves about how wireless tech is starting to harm future generations. You know, there's been rumors about if you keep your cell phone in your pocket, for a lot of men, you could end up with testicular cancer. Keep it in your back pocket, you end up with colon cancer. EMF waves ended up affecting, you know, unborn babies and stuff. Our next guest, Corey Hillis, president of EMF Solutions Incorporated, is a certified EMF specialist and holistic practitioner with decades of experience addressing the health effects of electromagnetic fields. Thank you for coming on the show today, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to talk about this with you guys.
So I'm seeing from pocket to placenta how wireless tech is harming future generations. I quote, unborn babies receive 20 times more EMF exposure than adults in your utero. And this is just the tip of a dangerous iceberg. So how bad is this epidemic going to get?
Yeah, I mean, you quoted one thing. There are 10,000 plus studies. I heard there's 20,000 studies and papers proving that this household EMF radiation is harming us. Okay, so it's more proven than smoking being bad for you, but it's been more swept under the rug than smoking ever was also. So there's not only so much ridiculous amount of studies and information, but the studies will shock the audience if you find out how much DNA damage and how much cellular damage and what all the symptoms and health issues that EMFs cause. They're often diagnosed as something else and never, you know, even considered because it's just the invisible elephant in the room that everybody's ignoring. Well, not everybody, but unless you educate yourself, you're pretty much not going to get the information.
So what are we looking at for symptoms that are often misdiagnosed? So what are these issues that you speak of?
Okay, so a great place for your listeners to go that are new to the subject is the Bio Initiative, one word, it's just together, no hyphens or anything, bioinitiative.org. If you add /conclusions, that'll take you to a webpage of an organization that is not biased. They don't sell anything. They're not funded by anybody with an agenda. They're from all over the world. They've been doing this for decades. And they have, that one page has a summary of 1,800 studies. So it's a really great non-biased neutral like place for you to get some information like I'm about to tell you. What symptoms they cover, fatigue. And this happens to be a lot of the symptoms that like just emerged in the last 20 or so years that are some of the most popular things happening. And either nobody knows what's going on or you misdiagnosed with something like long COVID or who knows what. So fatigue, sleep problems, concentration problems, headaches, migraines, cardiovascular issues, just destruction of our reproductive systems. You started mentioning something about that. Immune system imbalances, Alzheimer's, cancers, children are more affected, like you hinted at that. And the list goes a lot longer than I just named. I mean, that's just tip of the iceberg. I could talk like for the next 2 hours just about the reproductive effects alone about these EMFs. Again, it's invisible, it's not talked about, so everybody's kind of just not aware of it. And that's the harmful and scary part of this. When people become aware of it, like when we have products, okay? We have a unique solution that if we get time, we can get into. It's a unique solution, bar none. We're addressing the root cause like nobody ever did. And healthy, normal people that don't even have health issues will get a testimonial 50% of the time. Usually better sleep, more energy, less pain in their shoulder, all kinds of things you can see on our website. We have thousands of testimonials. That's how severe of an issue this is. That's how often we don't fix any health issues. We don't address any health issues, but there's such a shift when you take the stress on you, when you just take it away mostly or completely or almost completely. There's such a relief in your body and more energy going to your cells that your body has a big enough shift that many people notice. Mm-hmm. So it's a really big deal. And if we can touch on studies, man, I think people will start waking up to it.
There was a study I saw a while back that there was a misconception that phone usage within 2 hours of going to sleep would disrupt your sleep for the next 6 hours, leading to over long periods of time. Doing this would lead to a 60% increase in depression and anxiety. And what they found is they assumed it was the blue light exposure messing with your ability to engage in REM sleep. And what they actually found was that it was the EMF waves that were messing with your ability to engage in REM sleep, because they didn't see the exact same scenario when using a laptop in blue light right before bed. They saw it with cell phone usage with higher levels of EMF exposure.
Yeah, I mean, the cell phone studies will blow everybody's mind. So for starters, let's talk about the safety level. So the FCC was, with no qualifications, really, was put in charge of the safety level of EMFs radiation from the cell phone. They set it at 1.6 watts per kilogram of a certain amount of body weight. It's not going to make sense to people, but basically they're saying it's okay for it to heat your body from inside out like a microwave oven heats your food. And to me, that's insane. So, but even let's say this very high, and I'd like to explain that, and I don't know how much time we have, this very high level of radiation that they say, let's say that's accurate, okay? That the experts do not agree. They think that it's ridiculously high, but just to say that's the accurate level of radiation. Everybody's cell phone that's in this audience right now, when they sign it, they have small print in the contract that says, when you touch your cell phone, you are hundreds of % over the safety guidelines set by the FCC anyway. So the FCC is admitting in small print, or the phone companies are, indirectly, that every cell phone is different levels of radiation. Mm-hmm. Not safe levels are already in there. It was a lawsuit trying to make that big print like on a cigarette pack, right? Hey, this could cause issues. It's over the safety standard, for radiation. But the judge decided I'm not a lawyer, but got some language that basically said, they got it in small print, it's good enough. And that's really sucky for the rest of us, because now it's not getting out to the public. I like to quote one study. It was the European Union. By the way, the most expensive study ever done was the United States government set up the National Toxicology Program for $30 million and proved that cell phones are causing rats and tumors and cancer in mice and rats. But another study by the European Union, they paid millions of euro for 12 institutions across Europe. You got to understand, that's not one guy or, some biased person. That's 12 different institutions all fully agreeing to the study. How much DNA damage was happening from a cell phone versus a chest x-ray? Because we know chest x-rays are going to give you like a little DNA damage. We only get them when we need it medically, right? The results were ridiculous. And this set a lot of things in motion. On yesterday's cell phone, not today's 5G phone, they found that 24 hours on a cell phone was the same DNA strand breaks as 1,600 chest x-rays.
Holy shit.
So today, much less, so if this is even a 10th true, and this was unanimously agreed upon, and this is, I know 50 studies talking about DNA damage, so this is nothing new. If that's a 10th true, people need to wake up. This is This is the biggest environmental elephant in the room, environmental toxin that people are getting exposed to. And unless you got black mold in your house, what I just said is true. You better wake up, because this is affecting you whether you know it or not.
I think I want to harken back to what you just said about the chest X-rays. I just got an X-ray done, and it stands out in my mind because when I go in for an X-ray, when I visit the VA and I go in for an X-ray, they shield parts of my body that they don't mean to expose to radiation with lead suits and things to protect my organs and stuff. I have a Twitter machine in my hand. I have a laptop sitting here. We have a TV, whole bunch of equipment in the studio. I'm not shielded against any of this. And I highly doubt that they managed to shield my phone to not hit me with so much radiation. So is this about mitigating liability, or is this about this is such a lucrative market that the government doesn't want to lose out on the revenue from it? And these telecommunications giants have so much sway in modern society, ability to donate to campaigns, parties, candidates, everything, that we just can't afford to lose it. So everyone wants to sweep it under the rug.
Well, your guess is as good as mine, but when you get educated, you have pretty good guesses. So we have the biggest lobbying, type government, I think, in the world. And so there's a lot of money to lobby to sweep this under the rug every year from the cellular industry. But it's not just cell phones. Honestly, everything electric has some EMFs. The biggest culprits tend to be cell phones, Wi-Fi routers. But now you got everything Bluetooth Wi-Fi in your house, cell phone towers, Starlink coming from above that is hitting you from a satellite like a laser beam with the highest frequencies coming above of almost anything there is. Fiber optics, which is probably the biggest issue we've ever faced as far as EMFs go. And the experts, so quote unquote experts, they don't think it's harmful because that's because of certain properties of that cable and fiber optics. They are completely wrong, and we've proven it and we've shown it. And that's all the canaries in the coal mine across the country, which are the EMF sensitive people. We have hundreds of testimonials from them. When fiber optic goes in the neighborhood or anything, they tell us, oh my gosh, the cell tower went, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, that. The non-sensitive people might just have issues and not attribute it to EMFs. Oh, I'm just getting old, so I'm just having to sleep longer than normal. I got my coffee halfway through the day, and whatever it may be, and never attribute to EMFs. But this issue is big. Why we're here? One reason why we're here, I don't fully blame all the parties, is because scientists, it took them 50 years to discover that X-rays were damaging DNA. Okay, when they did, there was not some huge market. Nobody was trying to protect this information. It was like, well, let's keep it for medical reasons. We'll try to protect people. There wasn't a whole lot of extra uses for X-rays.
Yeah.
But this microwave radiation that comes off all the things I just named, the industry is bigger than the whole medical industry combined. When you combine cell phone industries and all the tech devices and everything that's going on right now. So there's a whole lot of reason not to really come out full blast with all this information. And it took us 60 years to discover, and just recently, that it is damaging DNA damage a whole different way. And we're kind of the first company to sort of get that missing link, which we completed and are addressing. But it's a whole different mechanism and way that we're getting damaged by DNA from your cell phone versus an X-ray. But it's ending up the same place, DNA damage.
So my next question is, could this be linked to the hundreds of % increase in cancer diagnoses over the past 20 years? I remember before smartphones, before smartphones, cancer didn't seem that common. Now it seems like everybody I know has cancer. I know guys who are in their early 20s to 30s who have cancer. I used to never see that.
Yeah, I mean, the Bio Initiative alone will show you cancer studies, and they'll show you like, okay, we have this many studies on leukemia, this many are conclusive. And conclusive for the not scientist person, I just had to learn myself, for the not medical doctor person, conclusive just means it's a high enough percentage that means it's almost a guarantee that one thing caused another. Okay. It could be probable and it's still a worthy study. But when it's conclusive, it reaches a certain probability threshold that they can make a claim with it.
So it hits the point where it's beyond the old adage that, correlation is not causation. It actually hits the point where it is causation.
Well, I don't know if it's causation, but it's definitely like fully linked. You know what I mean? Like it could A could cause B, could cause C, and you're just testing A and C, and there may be a B in there, but still it's happening. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But there's a lot of studies on cancer and Alzheimer's and all kinds of things, even autism. Dr. Martin Paul out of Washington State University explains. See, we know what's going on. So, I don't know if we have time, but this is a diagram that explains how this stuff is damaging us. Okay, so this is a human cell. If I can get my things not backwards. So this is a human cell, and this was a diagram by Dr. Martin Paul and another colleague of his. And so the EMF over here, I'm the opposite here. Over here, the EMF over here is somehow making the voltage-gated calcium channel, which is a little door on your cells, to malfunction and open, letting all of the calcium in your cell that shouldn't be. These are double ion calcium molecules. So we know that this malfunction is happening. And a lot of people are on calcium channel blocker medication drugs because of one reason or another. So doctors know a lot about how important it is for the calcium channel not to be malfunctioning and how much that can affect your health. The biochemist, like Dr. Martin Paul, says, when this happens, when the voltage-gated calcium channel malfunctions, it's like the door on your cell opens that lets in calcium. Instead of closing when it's got the proper amount of calcium, it just stays open because it's getting a bad message from these EMFs. And I can explain that. So it stays open. So it's just all the calcium flying by in the blood or whatever is just rushing inside the cell. These are double ion calcium molecules, so that changes the charge of the cell. Cells are supposed to be negative charge compared to the atmosphere outside. That's part of how they work. It screws that up. It screws up the nitric oxide levels. It starts free radical damage, and all that leads to DNA damage, and all that is happening no matter if you have symptoms or not. That's happening to you, okay? That's been shown in human cell studies, even our own. We had an independent lab in Texas do ours, showing our products fix that problem totally, but that's the next thing we could talk about if you want. But that is happening. So if you don't have fatigue, if you don't have all the other stuff I named yet, you might be rolling some dice for the future. You are getting that much DNA damage. You are getting all this stuff. Study after study after study has shown it, and we know how it's happening now. So there's really not getting around it. It's not like, hey, we know it's bad, it's electrical, and something about electric is important. No, we know what's malfunctioning in your cell. We know the snowball effect, and we are kind of the first people that discovered how the EMF is indirectly malfunctioning that voltage-gated calcium channel and how we can mitigate that. And so you mentioned one thing, the radiation you're not protected from. You can't really protect yourself from your cell phone radiation because then you wouldn't get the information. You need the waves, which are ones and zeros, to convert into information for video, audio, whatever. Yeah. So you can't really block this stuff. You can block an X-ray except for where you need it, right?
Yeah.
Same as this. You can block it except for where you need it, which if you want to use your cell phone, you need to not block it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where we're at. But the good news is we found it's not the EMF itself doing it. We agree with the physicists that it's not like ionic radiation where it directly damages DNA. But what happens is this absorbed radiation, the radiation that photons traveling light speed carrying energy, that's what this is. All radiation is. Some of these photons smash into a particle, like an electron. Then the electron absorbs the photon, the energy. It's gone. Meters like this that measure EMFs will no longer read it because it transferred into a different form of energy. And that new form of energy we call subatomic chaos, or at least part of that is. And that subatomic chaos is the shaking and vibrating that fools your voltage-gated calcium channels into opening and snowballs into the effects. And that's kind of where we came in. We discovered it's that subatomic chaos, that second domino. And that's what our products are addressing and doing it really well, according to our studies.
All right, so I just got the music, so it looks like we're out of time. But I want to direct people to where they can support your work, and I would like to have you back on the show because I want to do 2 full segments with you so we can go a little bit deeper because there's a lot of information in this, and I want to really dig deep so the average person can understand how detrimental this is because it's not going away; it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, I could talk for hours, but I'll try to keep it to whatever you need. I'd love to be back.
Thank you. So it's emfhometest.com. And what was
Yeah,
that
that's
other
a good
website you
landing
mentioned?
page. Yeah, that's a good landing page because when you go there, you can click on get a free home test, and what that means is free home test or free consultation from one of our certified EMF specialists. So if this just got your brain going, you're like, oh my gosh, I think I got to do something. I'm like tired all the time. I got a cell tower down the road, yada yada. Go here, ask questions to them. They'll guide you. They'll hold your hand. They'll answer anything you want. And then if you want to buy something, you can buy it then. So it's a great way not to just jump in, and everything 60-day return policy. So there's not a whole risk here. So I encourage people to go here, sign up for a free home test.
Thank you. I want to thank you for coming on the show. I look forward to being able to have you on in the near future so we can really dig into this a lot deeper.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, everybody. This is it for the Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. But before we go, before you jam out to some awesome tunes and look at some of the other shows that we got going on before Granite State Live tonight at 7, make sure to tune in. I want you to go to Ram TV Live and I want you to join. I want you to share, like, subscribe, retweet, give it to all your buddies so everybody else can get this information, hear from these great guests, and make sure you tune in to all the other shows. Elsa Kurt, you got Drew Allen, Granite State Live, Shadow Band. We got a whole bunch of shows. Savvy is back. So we got a whole bunch of stuff for you. Join the family. I'll see you next week. Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast, out.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.